Hi friends, welcome back to my channel. It's that time where we discuss and talk about all of the books that I read in the month of November. Okay, so for the month of November, I read a total of 11 books. Technically, I read 10 books, but because I didn't include a specific book that I read on my Kindle last month, I'm gonna count it in this list. Nonetheless, you guys, there's literally 3 types of books I read this month. Fantasy romance, why choose romance, and billionaire romance. And I say 3 because out of that category, there's literally a series that I binged. If you've been following me on Instagram, you will know what series I'm talking about. We will talk about it in this video, but I have never binged a series so quickly in my life within a span of a month. And it's ridiculously insane to me to even sit there and commit to that many books, part of the same series, all in 1 month. So I'm very proud of myself. Before we get into the video though, if you haven't already, please don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button. That way you never miss another one of my videos. And if you don't follow me on Instagram, I might regret this because sometimes I'm a little unhinged on Instagram. I'm goofy, I say the wrong things, and nothing is scripted. I don't pre-plan anything. I'm literally live on my stories, randomly talking about random things, mostly about books, but also my daily life. Sometimes I do little boomerangs. I do a lot. So if you haven't followed me on Instagram already, you probably should because you'll probably get to know me a little better. Also, we can talk a little more on there as well. Again, I might regret it because some of the things that I do or say on Instagram are unhinged, and I tell myself after I look at certain videos and I'm like, why did I say that? Good thing the stories only last 24 hours. That's all I'm saying. Anyways, let's get to this, you guys. I am so excited to share with you what I read this month. Let's talk about the book that I failed to mention that I read last month, and that is That One Night by Emily Rath. This is basically a prequel and a little novella that will set you up for the Jacksonville Ray series. And if you didn't know what the Jacksonville Ray series is, this is a series of, I think there are 3 books in the series, if I'm not mistaken, and in between each series, you get little happily ever after novellas following the couples in said books. The fun thing about this series is that it is a why choose hockey romance type of series. So it's very spicy, it's very fun, and I'm just having the best time taking my time reading through this series. It's the perfect palate cleanser and not a lot goes on. These are not plot-driven books. They're just mainly smutty, good time, but with a lot of character building, I think. You know, in my opinion, there's a lot of character building there, because if there wasn't, I wouldn't like the books as much. I wouldn't love each character as much. They're a fun time, you guys. They are just so good. Okay, so this is the prequel. This sets you up to the couple that you're gonna be reading about in the first book in the series. Now, this one was my first introduction to Emily Rath's writing. I will say, if I'm not mistaken, I think I gave this one a 3-star review because it was cringe. I didn't get the luxury of reading it tandem with the audiobook. I wish I had because I had no idea it was available, so I didn't get the full immersive effect, which could have been the reason why I didn't like it, because the narrators that narrate this series, I think they're great for what the books entail, like for what the books are about. I think they're great narrators. Their voices are not gold, but they're still good narrators enough to listen to, if that makes sense. Well, this one I had no idea that there was an audiobook. I don't know what I was thinking, but for some reason I didn't look into it, and so I physically read it. Some of the words were so cringy, like the way that the main female character, what's her name? I think her name is Rachel. Yeah, the main female character, Rachel, talks about in terms of like how she wants to climb the man like a tree. Like, to me, that was so cringy. Also, some of the things that the guy was saying was also very cringy. But again, what are you gonna expect from a little novella, you know? Wasn't the best impression for me, to be honest with you, just because the writing was not what I was used to. It was a little cringe. That's pretty much my only complaint about it. I don't want to tell you much about this little novella. I just want you to go into it blind. But in this one, we're following Rachel and Jake and how they have their one-night stand. The story goes from there. Again, this is a little novella introducing you to the next book in the series, which is Pucking Around. Now, this one is following the same couple, Rachel and Jake. And Jake is part of a hockey team, and Rachel happens to be his physical therapist. I think that's what she is his physical therapist. But also in this book, this is a why choose. So also we get to meet the assistant equipment manager to the hockey players, which is Caleb, Almiri, which is the goalie, and we have Jake, which is another hockey player. So it's basically Rachel, Caleb, Omari, I think it is his name, and it's their why choose polyamorous relationship. And I will tell you, this blew out my first impressions to the novella out of the water. This was a 5-star read. I think this was my very first very steamy, not only hockey romance, but why choose romance. And the way that Emily Rath writes her steamy scenes are so freaking phenomenal. Oh my gosh. Even the male on male steamy scenes to me were so freaking hot. It was basically my first time being introduced to certain scenes like that. And I really enjoyed it. To be honest with you, this book was so fun. Again, it's a lot of smut. It's very steamy. There's not really a lot of plot. You're just following these characters. You're following Rachel and her relationship with these men and how they love her and obsess over her. And it's so good. If you're wanting to read something different, you know, if you haven't read Why Choose yet, if you haven't read a hockey romance, because I didn't think I was into hockey. Like, I don't care about the sport. But this was done so well. You get so invested in the characters and their personalities. Even though we have one male character narrating all 3 men, he still makes every single man sound different from the other. He still gives them different personalities, even though it's the same voice. And that to me is a very exceptional narrator, if you ask me. He's so good at the way he reads to you that you really don't need a full cast of narrators narrating the book, you know? So yeah, I gave this a 5. I enjoyed it so much. I had the best time ever, and I'm continuing the series. Right now I'm working on finishing Fucking Wild, which is the 2nd book in the series, and we'll talk about that next month. But this was a good one. Definitely a very good introduction to Why Choose, for me anyway. Then, like I said, Emily Rath likes to give you a little more when her books end. So after every book, she includes a little novella, kind of like an extended epilogue, following the same characters and years later and what happens with their relationship. So this is no different in Pucking Ever After Volume 1. We are still following the characters in Pucking Around. We're following their life after a set amount of time, and it's so good. It's beautifully wrapped up in a bow. It's delicious because it's still steamy. Sometimes she'll add in their deleted scenes. Again, I had a great time, so I gave that one also a 5-star. Then I read my first Enemies to Lovers YA romantasy of the month, and that is The Dagger and the Flame by Catherine Doyle. Oh my god. Another 5-star. Surprise, surprise. Like, this was so good. This is literally an actual Enemies to Lovers because she does stab him in the rib, okay? So it's literally an actual Enemies to Lovers romantasy, and it's so good. It's forbidden as well. We are following Seraphine and Ransom in this world set where there's cloaks and there's daggers. Cloaks are kind of what Seraphine is. She is literally a thief. A cloak is basically a fancy word of saying she's a thief. They use a specific magic that allows them to slip under cracks and hide under the shadows. Ransom is a dagger, and daggers are essentially more like assassins. When Seraphine mother is murdered, she suspects that the person who murdered her is no one other than Ransom. Now here's the kicker. Ransom is set to, get rid of Seraphine, and Seraphine is out for revenge because, again, she suspects that Ransom murdered her mother. Forbidden love, romantasy, tension, actual enemies to lovers. And the audiobook to this was so exceptionally beautiful because both characters have the most beautiful accent. I had the best time. This is also a slow burn. I don't even want to tell you a lot about it. Nothing really happened between them. I mean, the tension and the angst was there until when you're almost halfway through the book. One of my favorite tropes in this book, not only is it enemies to lovers, but one of my favorite tropes has got to be, I was set out to you, but I fell in love with you instead. Ooh, that trope right there never ceases to bore me, okay? It's just so good. No steam, no spice. But the way that Catherine Doyle writes her angst and her tension and her forbidden love and her enemies to lovers is so freaking amazing, you guys. 5 stars. I had the best time of my life. The only little blurb that I'm going to read to you is this. In the dark underbelly of a beautiful city, 2 rival gang members are pitted against each other in a deadly game of duty and revenge in which the most dangerous mistake is falling in love. If you haven't read this already, read it. It is fantastic. 5 freaking stars all the way. I think I will be including this in my all-time favorite books of this year. Stay tuned for that video, okay? Because I will be including it. And then we have the Roman Empire of this series. The last book of this series. Okay, the one and only that took me months because I walked away from it because I thought that I was going to be so devastated with the ending of this book that I just was so scared shitless out of my mind thinking there's no way that I invested 8 books in this series for the ending to be the way that I think it's going to be. I stepped away from it and maybe 3 months to 4 months later I picked it back up and I friggin' finished this series, you guys. Kingdom of Ash by Sarah J Maas. This is the conclusion to the Throne of Glass series. Oh my gosh, if you haven't already watched my reading vlog, I will link it down below. You get my reactions after I finish this book. This is my favorite book out of the entire series. And you know why it's my favorite? Because of the freaking turmoil, emotional damage, all the heartache, all the tears, all of the anxiety that it gave me. And to me, if a book does that and gives me all these different emotions, it has to be my favorite book of the series. Of course, obviously, you all know this was a 5 star. I freaking cried my eyes out. I felt like I was being dumped because I finally finished Throne of Glass. It is a long time coming. I think I started Throne of Glass last year or this year, and we're now in December, so it literally took me a year to finish an 8-book series. What does that tell you? So much time invested, so many emotions, so many tears. It was so phenomenal in the most heartbreaking way, but in the best way because the ending was amazing. The ending tied itself up in a bow. The characters that didn't make it, the characters that you get attached to and you read freaking die throughout this series is so heartbreaking. The characters that you despise and you hate, and there's no way in hell that you're going to appreciate or love or even stand on that hill with them. It's just the way that Sarah J Maas writes her books is so fantastic, so beautiful, so poetic, so emotionally heartbreaking, but she also still gives you a really good ending. But first you have to cry and shed tears and feel all these heartbreaking emotions and go through all this trauma with the characters. It's just so good, you guys. So good. I am so happy that I finished this. Well, actually, I take that back. It's bittersweet. It's bittersweet because I'm happy that I finished because I've invested so much time into this series, but I'm also sad because, again, I feel like I've been dumped. I will no longer be able to have the same first impressions and experiences as I did when I first read this. And for any of you guys that haven't yet finished the series or started the series, please do. My gosh, it is the best ride of your life. It is so beautiful and it's so amazing. Like, again, you will be sad. You will be just like me when you end it because no more. I would die to give anything to be able to read this series for the first time again in my life and get the same emotions and feelings. Sure, I can reread it, but I already know what happens. I already anticipate the good, the bad, I don't know, the evil, the good, the bad, and the best. I don't know. I'm telling you, it was so good. Just a little word of advice, okay? Because I've learned it the hard way. If you're gonna start this series, I don't care what anybody says. I don't care if the author says read Throne of Glass first. Do not read Throne of Glass first. Read Assassin's Blade. Read Assassin's Blade because that sets you up for Throne of Glass. If you read Throne of Glass first like I did, you will not care enough for the characters to seek revenge in Throne of Glass. Because a lot of the things that happen in Assassin's Blade is spoiled in Throne of Glass if you don't read Assassin's Blade first. Plus, the emotional damage that you go through reading that first book, I would have died to be able to have those emotions that I didn't get to have because I decided to read Throne of Glass first. So in my opinion, and a lot of people's opinions, please read Assassin's Blade first, then Throne of Glass, and then continue the series. And also do the tandem read. Read Empire of Storms and Tower of Dawn together. It doesn't matter how chunky and big these books are. You will be in one hell of a ride in the best way ever. And they don't even feel that long. It's only third-person narration. Elizabeth, I think her name is Elizabeth. I forgot her last name. Her voice is exceptionally beautiful and perfect for this series. Hands down. Again, 5 stars. I'm so sad. I'm going to talk about the next 6 books, and this is part of a series. Yes, you heard me well. I actually started and binged an entire 6-book series in a month. I've never done that in my life. No matter how good the books are, I usually find myself taking a break because I burn myself out reading about the same characters in the same world and the same type of plot or the same type of storyline. This one, oh my gosh, so delicious, okay? That is the Windsor series by Katharina Mara. If you don't know what the series is about, this is literally a set of arranged marriage of convenience billionaire romances. And you guys, the way that Katharina writes her men, oh my gosh, I'm obsessed with most of these men. The men did it for me in these books. It's just so good. I discovered Katharina Mora on TikTok and I decided to try the first book. The first book is The Wrong Bride. In this series, we're following the Windsor brothers, or the Windsor siblings, because there is one sister in the Windsor family. This family is the Roman Empire. They are freaking billionaires, okay? They have real estate, media companies, they have finance companies, insurance companies, they own properties. They are so rich, okay? Their grandmother in this series is the one that chooses who they get to marry based on the family's background of the women and what they can do for their Roman Empire. Doing a marriage of alliance type of thing where both of the companies from said people merge together and they just make more money, if that makes sense. Raven and Eris are childhood best friends. Raven has a sister. We all know that Raven and Eris are meant to be. They've been best friends forever. They love each other. They were set to be arranged to get married until Raven's sister Hannah has her eyes on Eris. And I will tell you this is not a love triangle, but this is the best introduction you're gonna get to this author's writing. With the way that she writes her romances, they're so filled with drama. You're literally reading a soap opera, okay? It's so juicy, it's so messy. This is probably the messiest book out of them all because we have Eris, who we know is in love with Raven, but can't be with Raven because he's set to marry Hannah. And the only reason why I gave this book a 4 was because I don't like the way that Eris treated Raven during certain times. Like, he would promise her the world and then he would fall back on it, or he would try to deny the feelings he has for her, seeing as he doesn't have the same feelings for her sister. That's pretty much all I'm going to say. I don't want to give a lot, but this again is the perfect introduction to how well Katharina Mara writes her men, writes her romances, how much angst and pining every individual man does for their women. It's just so good. And we all know billionaire romances are over the top with the gestures, out of this world, jaw-dropping, so good. The steamy scenes are also amazing. Everything is perfection when it comes to Katharina Mara's writing. This whole series is perfection. But then let's talk about one of my favorite books in this series. Okay, I have two because I couldn't decide. The Temporary Wife. This one we're following Luca and Valentina, and Luca and Valentina have been working together. She has been his secretary for over 10 years. They hated each other because she was basically forced upon him. His grandmother took her under her wing, knowing that Luca despised her, and hired her for Luca to be his secretary. This is narrated, I forget the guy's name, but I'll put him down here. Oh my God, you guys, the sexual tension. I love workplace romance. I love it so much. I love the angstiness of it. I love the pining. I love some of the forbiddenness of it. The banter in this one was so immaculate. It was so delicious. So I gave this one a 5, and obviously for good reason. This is the kind of couple that these two are. He hates pink. Why does he hate hot pink? Because she writes messages on hot pink sticky notes and sticks them all over his office. Whether it's, don't forget about your 10 o'clock meeting, we have to do this because we have a deadline, or you're actually smiled today. Wow, I didn't even know you could do that. I thought smiling for you would hurt. Like, that's the kind of banter you're gonna get in this book. And everything's fine, everything's been professional. He hasn't overstepped his line with her until one day they're at a wedding and he sees her dancing with another man. And he goes freaking ballistic, and his rage is so hot, you guys. The way that he reacts to this one scene, here's another one of my favorites. He finds out that she is going on a date with a coworker, and so they go after hours and they go to a restaurant that the Windsor family owns. Before they're going to their date, he decides, even though there wasn't this rule before, to write an email to all the employees and says, effective immediately, there will be no dating amongst employees. If you do this, you will be fired on the spot. So what does he do? He crashes their date at one of the restaurants that his family owns, and he says, wow, I didn't know that you guys were such great workers. I had no idea that even you guys would consider working after hours, because this could not be a date, right? And so Valentina tells him, so what if it's a date? It's not like there's a rule. Oh, that there is though. Did you check this morning that I sent an email to all the employees stating that if you do date within the office, you will be losing your job. He turns to the man and says, I wouldn't want that for you. Right, Tom? I think his name is Tom. I don't know. Either way, that's the kind of man that Luca is, okay? Possessive, controlling, but in the best way. So freaking in love with Valentina. 5 stars. Then we have The Unwanted Marriage. This is book 3 in the series, following Dion and Faye, and this is a 10-year age gap, okay? And it's so delicious. With Dion and Faye's story, it's a little different because when Dion was 16, his grandmother told him who he would marry. And because there was a 10-year age gap when they were old enough to marry, he distanced himself from her, even though deep inside, he was obsessed and in love with her, but he didn't know it yet. The years pass by. They don't have to get married yet. So Faye falls in love with another man and she has a boyfriend. Everything changes for Dion when he realizes that. When he realizes that he has driven her to the point in the arms of another man, he spends his ever-waking motherfucking existing life trying to show her how much he cares about her. Again, you guys, the pining, the tension, the possessiveness, it's so delicious in these books. He is the type of man that literally buys her whole concert hall because she's a pianist so that she can have a very nice place to construct her music, to practice her music, and to perform in. He's the kind of man that when he finds out that her father has been physically abusing her, he does something that is a little unhinged, but in the best way ever. That's all I'm saying. 5 stars. This was another 5-star read for me. Amazing. Then we have my favorite book of the entire series, which is book 4, and that is The Broken Vows. This is following Zane and Celeste, and Zane and Celeste were childhood sweethearts. Something happened in their past. Celeste has really not forgiven Zane over. He was kind of a bully. He was mean to her when they were younger because he was obsessed with her. He was so in love with her, and his only way of coping with the fact that he was in love with her was by being extremely mean to her and bullying her. What's so delicious about this romance is that they are competitors. Her and her family compete with the Windsors when it comes to real estate and companies, and Zane is always one-upping her. This was my favorite book out of the entire series, not only because it's narrated by freaking Teddy Hamilton, and you know that man narrates with emotion, but it also has the best emotional turmoil, flawed relationship with the most miscommunication that you'll ever see. You just want them to love each other. You just want Celeste to forgive him for what he's done. It hurts to see them apart. It was just so good, okay? So freaking good. I mean, this man gets on his knees and begs her to give their love a chance. It was so beautiful. It was so well written. So much heartache. Something happens in this book that kind of turns for the worst in their relationship when everything's going so beautiful for them. And the way that they go through the heartache and the tears and the love and the emotions that they have for each other is so just so delicious. It's so good, you guys. The only thing I'm going to read to you in the back of this book is she was his first love, his first heartbreak, and his only regret. And one thing that I do remember that he does for her, and it's the smallest little thing, is that he calls her Celestial. And it's so romantic. He also buys a freaking island. This man does so many amazing jaw-dropping gestures, and the way he loves this woman is so hard. He loves her so hard. You can feel it bleeding out of the pages. Again, this is why this is one of my favorite ones. We have The Temporary Wife coming in as second, and this one is coming in at first. Hands down, nobody does it better than Zane and Celeste. I loved this book so much. The most disappointing book that I read in the series, and that was The Secret Fiancé. This one we are following Lexington and Rhea, and the reason why I didn't like this is because Lexington gave nothing. He gave nothing. The gestures were underwhelming. Rhea was very naive, and I just didn't believe in their relationship at all. They have this one night together because I don't even want to tell you about the story. He hacks into his grandmother's computer system and realizes who he's going to get married. What does Lexington do? Which I think was good on his part, because I guess in books, I like possessive, controlling, freaking angsty men. Is he goes, accidentally bumps into her at a party, meets her to make sure that she has good intentions. These characters gave nothing to me. Again, I did not believe their romance. The girl was very naive, and he did the most unforgiving type of shit that a man can do aside from cheating in this book, and I have no idea why she forgave him. I don't. This was a 3. Actually, no, it wasn't a 3. It was a 2-star because it was, I didn't like it. I hated it. That's all I'm going to say. Then I finished the series off with The Devious Husband. Now, a lot of people like this one. I gave this one a 4. The reason why I gave it a 4 was because both narrators in this book were just insufferable to me. I didn't like the man's voice in this story, and I did not like the woman's voice either, because the woman sounded like she was literally older than... I have nothing against older narrators. Okay, I just don't like it when the characters in the book are young and we have an older sounding narrator narrating the books. It just completely throws me off the story. This one we're following Xavier and the only sister sibling in the Windsor family, Sierra. Now Sierra and Xavier have this like company enemy rivalry type of thing. The Kingstons, Xavier Kingston, they are billionaires as well, but they kind of get their hands dirty. They do certain jobs that are not technically legal. They run the town. They own the town, kind of like mobsters. Sierra is the youngest. She's the little sister out of the family, but she's also very feisty, and she has the balls to sabotage his meetings, vandalize his cars. Like one time, she literally broke into his garage and slashed all of his tires. Every single time he one-ups her or steals her company ideas, she lashes out. And so he has allowed her to get away with it because deep inside, Xavier has always loved her, has always loved how feisty she is. The banter in this book is exceptionally delicious, you guys. The actions. He breaks into her house and steals all her jewelry, but then he replaces it with better jewelry. He opens up a restaurant. Every single meal, every single hors d'oeuvre or appetizer in that menu is dedicated to her favorite foods. He builds her a custom library, okay, beautiful 3-story custom library with a fireplace, and fills the entire dang library with all of her favorite romance books, all of her favorite series. Oh my gosh, this man, if we're talking about grand gestures, this man does so much for her. And the most beautiful thing about it is that he does all this stuff before they are even arranged to get married, before they're even told that they're gonna marry each other. He does it knowing that one day he has hopes that she will live with him and enjoy the beautiful custom library that he has built for her. You can't get better than that. The only reason why I didn't give it a 5 was because the narrators just kind of slumped it for me. The female narrator was okay, but the male narrator, very monotone, did not read with emotion or expression. This is the kind of woman you are in love with and you will die on the hill with. Please show me some emotion when you're reading the book. I'm sorry, I'm not a narrator, okay? And I know how hard that could be. I would love to be a narrator. It would be a dream, but like, I know how hard it could be to read a book for hours and hours and show emotion. But again, it didn't do it for me. It's the only thing I will complain about in this book is that once I got through the last 40% of the book, the friggin' gestures that he did, top tier. Top tier. I love this man. He is just perfection in a book. So there you have it, you guys. Those are all the 10/11 books that I read this month. Again, like, I will not shut up about the Windsor series only because I've never, again, ever binged a series back to back in a month. If you are looking for billionaire romance with a lot of pining and angst and a lot of emotions and messy at times and just so freaking bingeable, you need to start the series. You need to, because Catherine Amara knows what she's doing. She does it so damn well. I can't wait to read through her backlist and see what other romances she has to offer, because she is amazing. So that's it. That's it for today's video. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button, and I will catch you guys on my next one. Bye!